How does it make you feel when I say the names Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green? Because I can guarantee, no matter who you are and no matter who you support, they evoke some sort of emotion in you, whether you hate them or you love them. But I'm sure that everybody can agree, or everybody should agree, that basketball doesn't get much better than those three on a court. Steph Curry and Klay shooting the lights out of a building, having the greenest of green lights in NBA history, and Draymond Green behind them, the defensive juggernaut, the fire in the belly of that team, and the heart and soul of that team that just ties everything in together. An organically built dynasty, built and on the foundation of three good friends that turned into one of the most destructive NBA teams ever, and one of the most likable NBA teams ever before they brought in that other guy into the band. And then they turned into villains, but they've been through so much. 4 championships in the last 8 years. Obviously one of the greater dynasties in the NBA history. But is this their last dance? Is this the last possible shot that those three have at an NBA championship? Will they ever get another shot? Or is this the last season? And yes, the term last dance gets thrown around loosely for some reason. But in the case of the Warriors, this could well and truly be those three's last ever chance and last ever shot at an NBA championship together. Well, if you look at how people are talking about the Golden State Warriors, you would think that it seems like it is their last dance. The moves that they've made and how people are viewing this team and how this season should be panning out for them, you would say that, yeah, this is the Warriors' last dance. This is their real, well, at least for those three in particular, it's their last real shot at a championship together. Because in maybe a year's time, if this team does not win a championship, I think that band could be broken up. But forget about what's ahead. What the hell are they gonna do, and what do they need to do to maximize their chances of actually winning a championship on their so-called last dance? If you were to ask me, I don't think it's up to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, or Draymond Green. They will play how they play, and they've been playing this way for the last 10, 13 years. Nothing will change from them. Steph Curry will be an MVP candidate, Draymond Green will be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and Klay Thompson will be one of the best catch and shoot shooters in the whole of the league. Those three dudes won't change. And those three dudes aren't the reason that they lost last season. Obviously, Steph Curry playing as well as he could. Draymond Green doing what he can, and well, if you're asking me, Well, if you're asking me, them winning a championship is not up to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green this year. It isn't. Because those three dudes will play the same no matter what. How they've been playing for 10, 13 years, they will continue to give those sorts of performances. Steph Curry will be an MVP candidate. Draymond Green will be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And Klay Thompson will be one of the best catch and shoot shooters in the whole of the league. Those three things and those three plays and the three performances that they put out will not change. And to be honest, it isn't the reason that they even lost last season. I guess you could say Klay Thompson wasn't playing at to the level that he should have been playing. But that's a minor tweak. Klay Thompson, if he shoots a little bit better, I still don't think that gets them far enough to win a championship. So I don't think that was the problem in the entirety. Because to be honest, if the Warriors want to win, it's not on Curry, Klay, or Draymond. It is on those young guys, and it is on how those young guys perform. And it's all because they got themselves into that mess. Bob Myers wanted to build this 2-timeline thing where he has the core on Curry, Klay, and Dre, and he's trying to rebuild and bring in a bunch of new young guys to usher in a new generation. And that obviously didn't work. It failed miserably. It disintegrated like a lead balloon. And now you've seen James Wiseman leave the door, you've seen Jordan Poole leave the door, and they brought in more veterans and they brought in older guys to help and maximize the chances of winning a championship with the core. Hence why they brought in a Chris Paul. Hence why they're looking at a Dwight Howard. They aren't looking towards those young guys anymore. But there's still two young guys on that team. And there's the two main young guys on that team even. Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, both drafted in the 2021 draft. Number 7, number 14, raw talent. Obviously, there's boundless talent to both of those guys. And they both could be incredible NBA players. But for the Warriors, and for the situation that the Warriors are in, they need to be able to contribute to a championship level team. And that's the only way that this team and this core will be able to bring themselves one more championship. It truly and honestly is up to Kuminga and Moody to show up. Because those guys, I feel really bad for them. I feel so bad for Kuminga and Moody because the amount of talent that they have, if they were playing on a team like the Pistons, if they were playing on a team like the Pacers, they'd be able to show out, they'd be able to make mistakes, they'd be able to learn while playing. But when you're playing for the Warriors and when you're playing under that core, you need to be winning every single game. And when you're that young and you have that much talent and that much upside, and you're looking to unlock that potential, it doesn't really work on that kind of team. And in the first 2 years, we saw that it didn't really work. Yes, they could play spot minutes here and there, and they can look good, and they can contribute. Moses Moody obviously looks like the more mature player, and Kuminga has the upside, crazy upside, but he's raw. He makes mistakes often, and he looks sort of disjointed in that team whenever he's playing. And in the first 2 years, we saw those things amplified to the nth degree. But all of that needs to change into this season. Those two guys need to play consistent minutes, and they need to be able to play good minutes. And they need to be putting in good performances night in and night out. Because if those two dudes are firing and Kuminga and Moody are playing to the best of their abilities, this team just unlocks a whole new level. Because without those two guys, there may be a fringe championship contender. Even as a Warriors fan, I don't think we would be good enough to win a championship without the likes of a Kuminga and a Moody. But if those two dudes are playing well and they're playing to their sorts of potentials, that unlocks a whole new thing. Because now all of a sudden, you have a guy in Jonathan Kuminga who is a defensive menace, who has the ability to put pressure on the rim that many of the other players on the roster don't really have. And of course, Moses Moody, another great shooter, knows how to move without the ball, and he would just fit right into that system. And it gives you two extra options that you can look to in a playoff scenario. Because what let the Warriors down against the Lakers was because they didn't have any other options to look to. And they didn't have the versatility, and they didn't have the ability to adapt. The weapons in that arsenal were not varied enough to take down a team like the Lakers. And if you brought in a Kuminga and a Moody playing to a high enough level, that just gives you two new options. That gives you not even two new possibilities. That gives you so many more possibilities that you could build a lineup on and take down different teams. So having Kuminga and Moody really nullifies that problem that the Warriors had. That problem with versatility goes out the door when you have Kuminga and Moody. Kuminga and Moody playing well is really the key to this team, and it's really what will unlock them. And maybe we'll see the Warriors go on to win another championship, but I can guarantee you that won't happen if Kuminga and Moody aren't playing to their potentials, or at least better than what they've been playing in the last couple of seasons. Because the Warriors definitely need Kuminga and Moody playing to the best of their abilities to win a championship. Now, in order for Kuminga and Moody to be playing as well as they want to be playing, I think the Warriors have made a key move in bringing in Chris Paul. Now, when Chris Paul first came in, I wasn't moved. I don't really like Chris Paul because of who he is. As a player, he's great. Chris Paul is obviously a good player, but he's almost into his 40s, and he's not the same player that he was. And as a person, I don't really like him. So the Warriors bringing him in just moved me the wrong way. But he's there, and at the end of the day, he's a good enough basketball player. But the main thing about Chris Paul is that every roster he's gone to, one thing is for sure, Chris Paul makes players around him better. Now, obviously, Curry, Klay, and Draymond, they will get a little bit better, but everybody knows their potentials and everybody knows how they'll play. Obviously, Chris Paul isn't changing any of that. Even with the likes of Wiggins, and maybe he can make Looney a little bit better and look more out of Looney. But the main thing is, Chris Paul playing with Kuminga and Moody could really change the trajectory of their careers. If Chris Paul gets it right, and if Chris Paul can make those two players better, all of a sudden you're looking at one of the better second lineups in the NBA. Now, obviously, they're not as deep as the likes of the Clippers or the Celtics, but that's a really good second lineup. In Chris Paul and Kuminga and Moody, and maybe it's Looney or Dwight Howard playing at the 5, but all of a sudden, as I said, you bring yourselves more versatility and you give yourself more options to attack, to play defense. Kuminga and Moody could really benefit from Chris Paul coming into the team. But all in all, I guess at the end of the day, it is the Warriors' last stand, because I don't see a world where they could win another championship if they don't win it here. Well, at least for that core, for those three in particular. I think Steph Curry, with a different iteration of a team and a different combination, could go on and win another championship. But for those three in particular, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, for them to win another championship, it has to happen now. And it has to happen in this season. And I think, and as I said, it's not up to them. They will play how they play and they will look great. But it's up to the guys like Kuminga and Moody, and it's up to the guys like Wiggins and Looney to play up to their levels, and Gary Payton is second, and some of the vets that you bring on, bringing in timely minutes in playoff series, because that's really important as well. A guy like a Dwight Howard, if he does come in, being able to give you serviceable minutes in the playoffs, giving you another option in the playoffs, and maybe some of the rookies showing up as well. But especially Kuminga and Moody, how they play and how they develop from the previous seasons is very, very important to look at in the first couple of games of the season. Because if they finally have clicked in a gear and they look like serviceable players on that roster, I think this team will have championship expectation. Obviously, they already have championship expectation, but they will move to another level of championship contenders if those two are playing at the level. And obviously, bringing in Chris Paul helps that fact. Bringing in Chris Paul can help unlock those two plays. But it definitely is the Warriors' last dance.